Every outcome in your life has a signature on it, not the signature of luck, not the signature of fate or coincidence, or the mysterious workings of a universe that operates without pattern. Every outcome in your life carries the signature of something you did, something you chose, something you thought, something you sent out into the world at some earlier point that has now completed its journey and arrived back at your door. Most people refuse to believe this, not because the evidence is weak, but because the implication is uncomfortable. If nothing in your life is random, then you are not a passive recipient of circumstances beyond your control. You are an active participant in the construction of everything that has happened to you, and everything that is currently happening to you, and everything that is about to happen next. That is a confronting idea. It removes the comfort of blame. It closes the exit that leads to the story where your life is shaped primarily by external forces and other people's decisions, and the specific role of a cosmic dice that simply came up wrong for you more often than it should have. But it also opens something far more powerful than comfort. It opens agency. Real, genuine, life-changing agency. The understanding that if your actions created your current reality, then your actions can create a different one. That the same force which produced what you are currently living can be consciously redirected to produce something entirely new. This is what karma actually means. Not punishment. Not a cosmic ledger where wrongs are tallied and debts extracted at inconvenient moments. Karma is the ancient understanding of causality applied to human life. Every action generates an energy. That energy does not disappear. It moves through the world and returns, sometimes slowly, sometimes immediately, sometimes in forms so different from their origin that the connection is nearly impossible to trace. But it returns, always. The 6 laws of karma are not superstition. They are not religious doctrine requiring faith in the absence of evidence. They are observations about the consistent, repeatable patterns that govern human experience. Patterns so reliable that philosophers and teachers across completely separate cultures and centuries and traditions arrived at versions of the same understanding independently of each other. That convergence is not coincidence, it is the fingerprint of something true. Today we are going to walk through 6 of these laws, not as abstract philosophy, but as practical, applicable, deeply human principles that you can begin using today. Each one will ask something of you. Each one will point at something in your current life that deserves a closer and more honest look. And by the end of this video, the way you see the relationship between your choices and your outcomes will never be quite the same. If something in this video lands somewhere, words rarely reach. Comment below, "My actions are my karma." Law number 1, the law of return. Every word you said, every action you took, every kindness you gave, and every cruelty you delivered, none of it disappeared. It is all still moving, and one day it will find its way back to you. Every single thing you put into the world is still moving. The kindness you extended to a stranger who needed it. The cruelty you directed at someone who was already wounded. The genuine effort you poured into your work when nobody was watching. The corners you cut when the watching was absent. The words you said in anger that you cannot take back. The encouragement you gave that changed the direction of someone's day or week or year or life. All of it is still moving, still completing its circuit, still finding its way back to the source from which it originated. We live as though our actions are discrete events, as though each moment is sealed when it ends, and the energy it contained simply stops. We say something unkind and tell ourselves it was just words. We make a selfish choice and tell ourselves it affected nobody. We withhold something we could have given freely and tell ourselves the withholding cost nothing. But energy does not work that way. It does not stop. It transforms and travels, and eventually, in ways we rarely expect and often cannot trace, it returns to the person who generated it. The person who spent years building a reputation for reliability does not have to ask for trust. It arrives. The person who spent years being careless with other people's feelings does not have to explain why their relationships keep breaking down in the same way. The pattern explains itself. The karma of consistent cruelty is a life that grows progressively lonelier. The karma of consistent kindness is a life that grows progressively richer in the things that money cannot buy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Your thoughts are energy. Your consistent, repeated, habitual thoughts are the most powerful energy you generate because they are the invisible architecture beneath every visible action. They determine what you notice and what you overlook, what you move toward and what you avoid, what you believe is possible for your life and what you have already decided beneath the level of conscious awareness is beyond your reach. The law of return operates on your thoughts just as powerfully as it operates on your actions. A person who thinks predominantly in gratitude lives in a different world than a person who thinks predominantly in grievance, even when their external circumstances are identical. Not because the grateful person has better circumstances, because the frequency of gratitude generates a way of seeing that finds things to be grateful for that the frequency of grievance renders permanently invisible. This is not positive thinking as a self-help concept. This is the oldest observed law of human psychology dressed in ancient language. What you consistently put your attention on grows. What you consistently put your energy toward builds. What you consistently give the world in thought and action and intention is what the world eventually gives back. So, the question the law of return asks of you is not complicated. It is simply honest. What are you actually giving? Not what you intend to give, not what you tell yourself you are giving. What is the actual, observable, consistent energy that moves from you into the world in your ordinary, unremarkable, no one is watching moments? Because those moments are the real ones. The moments of public virtue are easy. The moments that test your karma are the moments when nothing is at stake except your own integrity. The moments when cutting a corner would cost you nothing visible and nobody would ever know. The moments when the person in front of you cannot offer anything in return for your kindness, and your kindness therefore has no transactional value whatsoever. What you give in those moments is what you actually are. And what you actually are is what the law of return reflects back at you across the full length of your life. Give what you want to receive, not as a strategy, as a practice, as the daily, unglamorous, quietly powerful commitment to being the energy you want the world to return to you. Law number 2, the law of creation. You are not a passenger in your own life. Every day you either build the life you want or you drift deeper into the life you never chose. The decision is always yours, even when it does not feel like it. Waiting is a choice. Most people do not realize this. Waiting for the right moment, waiting for better circumstances, waiting for someone to give you permission or opportunity, or the specific conditions under which beginning finally feels safe. Waiting feels passive. It feels like the absence of a choice rather than a choice itself. But waiting is one of the most consequential decisions a human being can make because of what it produces. It produces a life shaped by everyone who was not waiting. The law of creation is the karmic understanding that reality is not a fixed landscape that you move through. It is a living, malleable, constantly forming construction that is being shaped every single day by the intentions and actions of everyone participating in it. The people who understand this and act on it become the architects of their environment. The people who do not become the inhabitants of an environment someone else designed. Most people live in someone else's reality for their entire lives. In the reality their parents designed for them in childhood. In the reality their culture defined as success or failure, or acceptable or unacceptable. In the reality their employer created and invited them to participate in on terms the employer set. In the reality their social circle maintains through the invisible but powerful pressure of shared assumptions about what people like them do and do not do. None of these realities are wrong simply because someone else created them. Some of them are genuinely good environments that support your growth and reflect your values and give your life a meaningful structure. But they are only truly yours if you chose them. If you examined them with clear eyes and decided that, yes, this is where I want to be, and this is how I want to live, and these are the people I want to build my life around. Epictetus said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." This is often misread as passive acceptance. It is the opposite. Epictetus is not saying accept whatever happens to you without resistance. He is saying stop spending your energy wishing reality were different from what it is, and start spending it on what you can actually do within the reality that exists. The distinction is between the energy spent on complaint and the energy spent on creation. Both require the same effort. Only one produces anything. Creating your reality does not require extraordinary circumstances. It does not require resources or connections, or the specific advantages that some people begin with and others do not. It requires the daily, consistent, sometimes tedious practice of making intentional choices rather than default ones. Of asking before each significant decision whether this choice is moving toward the life you are building or simply maintaining the life you inherited by default. Every day you make dozens of choices that collectively constitute the karma of your life's direction. What you consume, what you study, what you practice, who you spend your hours with, what you allow into your attention and what you exclude from it, what you say yes to and what you say no to. Each of these choices is a small act of creation, and small acts of creation compounded across days and weeks and years produce lives. The person who has been making slightly more intentional choices than average for 5 years is unrecognizable from the person who has been making default choices for the same period, not because of any single dramatic decision, but because of the compounding of thousands of small ones. Start creating. Not with a grand plan that requires perfect conditions to execute, with the next choice, the very next one. Before you make it, pause long enough to ask whether it is the choice of someone building their reality or someone waiting for reality to build itself around them. That pause is where your karma changes. That moment of conscious choice repeated across the days of an ordinary life is how extraordinary lives are actually made. Law number 3, the law of honesty. Your life right now is the sum of everything you have done up to this moment. That is not a judgment, that is a map, and maps exist for one reason, to show you where to go next. Honesty about where you are is the most underrated form of courage. Not honesty with others. That has its own difficulty. Honesty with yourself. The specific, uncomfortable, quietly devastating honesty of looking at your current circumstances without the protective layer of justification and excuse, and the carefully constructed narrative that explains why everything is as it is for reasons that are mostly outside your control. That narrative is one of the most sophisticated things the human mind produces. It is detailed and internally consistent, and it always positions you as someone who is doing their best within constraints, imposed by forces beyond your management. The difficult childhood, the unsupportive partner, the economy, the industry, the specific combination of disadvantages that made your situation uniquely challenging in ways that simpler lives do not have to navigate. Some of that narrative is true. Circumstances are real. Disadvantages are real. The specific history that shaped you is real, and its effects are real, and dismissing any of it is both intellectually dishonest and deeply unkind. But the narrative that attributes everything to external causes and nothing to internal ones is also not true. And living inside that narrative, however comfortable it is, prevents the one thing that the law of honesty promises to those who are willing to abandon it. Clarity. Seneca wrote, "The first step toward becoming better is to admit that you are not yet what you could be." Not with self-flagellation, not with the crushing weight of shame about everything you have done or failed to do. With the clean, honest, almost relieving acknowledgement that the current chapter is not the final one, and that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not a verdict on your worth, but a map of the work that remains. Your present is shaped by your past actions. Every single element of your current reality has a causal chain that runs back through your choices, your habits, your responses to circumstances, your use of time, your patterns of thought. Not every element and not exclusively, but significantly, more significantly than most people are comfortable acknowledging, the relationship that failed. What role did your patterns play in how it unfolded? The career that stalled? What choices contributed to the stalling? The health that declined? What habits across what period of time moved things in that direction? The finances that never quite stabilized? What decisions repeated across years kept the instability in place? These are not comfortable questions. They are not the questions that the protective narrative wants you to sit with, but they are the only questions that contain answers capable of changing anything. Because the moment you honestly identify the ways in which your past actions contributed to your present circumstances, you simultaneously identify the mechanism through which your future actions can change them. The same causal relationship that produced what you do not want is available to produce what you do want. The karma of honest self-assessment is access to your own levers. The karma of continued self-protection is continued movement in the same direction. Accepting where you are does not mean being satisfied with it. It means being honest enough about it to see it clearly. And seeing it clearly is always, without exception, the prerequisite for changing it. Clarity begins with honesty, not the honesty of confession or public admission or performing vulnerability for an audience. The private, quiet, deeply personal honesty of sitting with your own life and letting it be exactly what it is without the defense of explanation. Letting it be what it is long enough to see it accurately. And then from that accurate seeing, deciding what you are going to do next. That decision made from genuine clarity rather than protective narrative is the beginning of different karma. The beginning of a different chapter. The beginning of a life that is being consciously shaped rather than unconsciously continued. Law number 4, the law of growth. You cannot change the people around you no matter how badly you want to, but you can change yourself. And when you change yourself, everything around you slowly begins to shift in ways you never expected. Every person who has ever tried to change someone else knows the specific exhaustion of that project. The conversations that circle back to the same point without resolution. The hope extended again and again that this time the message landed differently. The energy poured into trying to shift another person's perspective or behavior or choices or character. Energy that returns without having moved anything except your own patience, which has moved significantly in the direction of depletion. Trying to change other people is not just exhausting, it is karmically counterproductive. Because every unit of energy directed outward at the task of managing what other people do is a unit of energy not directed inward at the only change project that has ever actually worked: yourself. You cannot change other people. Not through argument, not through example, not through love, not through patience, not through the most perfectly constructed case ever assembled for why they should be different from how they are. People change when they decide to change, when the internal conditions for change are met in their own experience, in their own time. You can be present for that. You can influence the environment in which it might occur, but you cannot make it happen, and you cannot prevent it from not happening. What you can change with complete and absolute authority that no other person can override is yourself, your habits, your responses, your patterns of thought, your relationship to difficulty and discomfort and failure and uncertainty, your use of time, your quality of attention, your willingness to sit with what is hard long enough for it to teach you what it came to teach. All of this is under your jurisdiction and only yours. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The strength that comes from this realization is not the strength of someone who has gained control over their circumstances. It is the strength of someone who has stopped needing that control, who has discovered that the security they were trying to manufacture by managing everything around them was always available from a source that could never be taken away: the disciplined, consistent, daily management of their own inner world. The law of growth operates on a simple but profound observation. The only environment that changes in direct proportion to your effort is your own character. Everything else responds partially, inconsistently, sometimes not at all. But pour your energy into changing yourself, into genuinely growing in the direction your life is asking you to grow, and the transformation is reliable. It compounds, it accumulates across days and months and years into something unrecognizable from what it started as. And here is where the law becomes most interesting. When you change the people and circumstances around you, change not because you changed them, but because you are now interacting with them differently. The person who has genuinely worked on their own anger does not encounter the same anger-generating situations as frequently, not because the world became less provocative, but because they stopped being as provocable. The person who has genuinely worked on their own insecurity stops attracting dynamics that exploit insecurity, not because people became more trustworthy, but because the signal they were sending changed. Karma flows through character. The deepest, most consistent, most life-altering karma you can generate is the karma of genuine self-development. The daily, unglamorous, never fully finished work of becoming someone whose actions, thoughts, and presence consistently generate the kind of energy they want return to them. Stop trying to change the world around you before you have changed the world within you. Not because the external world does not matter, because the internal one is the only place where the tools that change anything actually live. Control yourself with patience, with consistency, with the deep understanding that this is not a project with a completion date, but a practice with a lifetime of compounding return. That is where real change starts. That is where it has always started. And that is the only place it has ever truly come from. Law number 5. The law of ownership. Nobody is coming to fix your life, not luck, not timing, not the right person at the right moment. The day you stop waiting and start owning is the day everything begins to change. Something happened to you that was genuinely not your fault. This needs to be said directly because the law of ownership is frequently misread as a denial of everything that was done to people rather than by them. Injustice is real. Circumstances outside your control shaped you in ways you did not choose. Things happened to you early enough and powerfully enough that they became architecture rather than events, shaping the internal landscape through which you now experience everything. None of that is your responsibility. What happened to you is not your fault. What you do with it is. That distinction is not harsh. It is not the cold logic of someone who dismisses the reality of pain and disadvantage and the genuine lasting effects of circumstances that should never have occurred. It is the most compassionate thing that can be offered to someone whose past contains genuine suffering, because it separates what cannot be changed from what can. It places the unchangeable in the past where it belongs, and the changeable in the present, where it is actually accessible. The law of ownership is about the present, not about what made you, about what you do with what you are right now, with the specific combination of history and capacity and circumstance that constitutes your actual life in this actual moment. Epictetus, who lived the first portion of his life as a slave, who had less control over his external circumstances than almost any person watching this, built an entire philosophy on this distinction. He knew better than most that you cannot always control what happens to you. He also knew from lived experience that most philosophers only theorized about that you can always control your response to it. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Between every event and your response to it, there is a space. In that space is your freedom. In that space is your karma. In that space is the difference between a life that continues to be shaped by what happened and a life that begins to be shaped by what you choose. Your life is your result, not entirely. Not in the sense that every element of it is traceable to a deliberate choice you made with full information and complete freedom, but substantially, more substantially than the narrative of victimhood allows, and more substantially than most people are willing to sit with honestly. The patterns that repeat in your relationships, the financial situations that keep recurring in different forms, the professional ceilings that appear regardless of where you work, the emotional dynamics that show up with different people but follow the same shape. These patterns are not random. They are not bad luck. They are the karma of something that has not yet been examined honestly enough to be changed. Taking ownership of these patterns is not the same as blaming yourself for them. Ownership and blame are completely different orientations. Blame is backward-facing and punishing. It says you were wrong and the wrongness defines you. Ownership is forward-facing and empowering. It says you have the ability to respond differently, and that different response will generate different karma. The moment you take genuine ownership of your life, not performatively, not as a temporary mood of self-improvement that fades when circumstances press back, but genuinely and consistently, and in the ordinary moments when accountability costs you something real, your karma shifts. Not dramatically, not immediately in the external circumstances, but in the internal orientation that generates external circumstances over time. Your choices built this. Your choices can build something different. That is not a burden. It is the most liberating truth available to a human being. Your life is not a fixed sentence. It is a living document that you are writing with every choice you make, and every response you offer, and every moment you either act from your highest understanding or retreat from it into the comfort of familiar patterns. Own it, all of it, not with shame, with the quiet, powerful, life-changing understanding that ownership is the only position from which anything can actually be changed. Law number 6, the law of connection. Nothing you have ever done was wasted. Nothing you are doing right now is without consequence. Every small choice is quietly building the next chapter of your life, whether you are paying attention or not. Nothing in your life exists in isolation. The conversation you had 3 years ago that shifted something in the way you see yourself. The book you read at exactly the right moment that changed the direction you were heading. The decision you made in a difficult season that felt small at the time and turned out to be the hinge on which the next several years swung. The habit you started or stopped. The person you chose to spend more time with or less. The thought you entertained repeatedly until it became belief, and the belief became behavior, and the behavior became outcome. All of it is connected. All of it is still active. All of it is part of the living, continuous causal chain that runs from your earliest choices through your present circumstances and forward into everything that has not yet happened but is being shaped right now by what you are doing in the moments that feel too ordinary to be consequential. The law of connection is the karmic understanding that time is not a series of isolated episodes, but a single continuous narrative. That the you of 10 years ago is not a separate character from the you of today, but the same person in an earlier chapter of a story that is still being written. That what that earlier chapter contained is directly, causally, inescapably connected to what this chapter contains, and that this chapter, the one you are living right now in this ordinary week, in these unremarkable days, is directly, causally, inescapably connected to what the next chapter will contain. This is either the most motivating or the most confronting idea in this entire video, depending on where you currently are, and how honestly you are willing to look at what your present chapter is building toward. Seneca wrote, "Dum diffiter vita transcurrit." While we are postponing, life speeds by. What you are doing right now, while you are waiting for the right moment to start building the life you actually want, is also building something. The question is not whether your present is creating your future. It always is. The question is whether it is creating the future you want or simply continuing the pattern of the past. Connection means that nothing is wasted and nothing is free. Every good thing you do today is connected to something good that will exist in your future, even if the connection is invisible from here. Every avoidance, every postponement, every moment spent maintaining a comfortable present at the cost of a better future is also connected to something. Connected to more of the same. Connected to a future that looks remarkably like the present because the present kept generating the same inputs. This law also carries something deeply comforting for the person who has made significant mistakes or spent significant time in directions that did not serve them. The connection runs forward as well as backward. Your past built your present, but your present is building your future. And the present is always now. Always accessible, always regardless of how long the previous chapter ran or how far in the wrong direction it went, capable of generating different karma for what comes next. You cannot change what the past built. You can change what the present is building every single day, with every choice, with every thought you choose to entertain or dismiss, with every action you take or defer, with every relationship you invest in or release, with every habit you begin or end. All of it is connected. All of it is building. All of it is karma in its most active and immediate form. The law of connection asks one question with profound patience and complete consistency across the length of your entire life. What are you building right now? Not in the big moments that feel significant, in the ordinary ones. In the Tuesday afternoon choices and the Thursday morning habits and the Sunday evening decisions about how the coming week is going to be spent. Those moments are connected to your future with exactly the same force as the dramatic ones. Sometimes more so because they are more numerous and because their cumulative weight, invisible in any single instance, is enormous across the full arc of time. Build consciously. Build with the knowledge that nothing is isolated, and nothing is wasted, and nothing is without consequence. Build knowing that what you do today is writing the next chapter of a story that has been in progress since you drew your first breath, and that the pen right now is in your hand. 6 laws, 1 truth. Nothing in your life is random. Every action, every thought, every choice, every habit, every response, every moment of courage, and every moment of avoidance is generating karma, is sending energy into the world that will complete its circuit and return, is building the next chapter of a life that is not being written by fate or luck, or the decisions of other people, but by you, every single day. In the moments that feel too small to matter, and the moments that feel too large to navigate, and all the ordinary unremarkable moments in between. What you give returns. What you create is your reality. Where you are is where your past choices led you. Who you are becoming is the only change that changes anything. What you do with your circumstances is your ownership and your power. And everything, absolutely everything, is connected to everything else in a causal chain that runs from who you were, through who you are, and forward into who you are going to be. Karma is not punishment. Karma is not a cosmic force waiting to settle scores or reward virtue in proportion to its public visibility. Karma is simply the honest, patient, endlessly consistent reflection of what you are. What you consistently think, what you consistently do, what you consistently give to the world and to yourself across the full length of your ordinary days. Change your actions and your life follows, not immediately, not in a single dramatic moment of transformation, but reliably, consistently. With the compounding certainty of a universe that was built on causality and has been operating on it without interruption since before your life began. The karma of this moment is already forming. The question is what you are going to put into it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Waste no more time understanding karma. Live it. In the next choice. In the next response. In the next ordinary moment that is like all the others, building something real, whether you are conscious of it or not." If this video found you at exactly the right moment, share it with someone whose life is ready for this understanding. And remember, your actions are your karma. Your karma is your life. And your life begins changing the moment your actions do.